Today, we're changing the spark plugs. Welcome to Ventry Synthetic Lubricants. Today, we're changing the spark plugs on a 2005 Dakota with the 3.7 liter V6 engine. My father-in-law had a check engine light. I read it. It turns out it was a random misfire, and so it has about 85,000 miles, and he's never changed the spark plugs. So today we're going to change the spark plugs. I'll go through the process. So the video footage didn't turn out very useful here, so I'm going to speed right through most of it and then add this voiceover to show you. So the first thing we got to do is take the airbox off. We'll take this hose out with those two bolts. And then we've got these two bolts underneath. They're somewhat difficult to get to. They are T25 Torx. There's one here, and then there's another one that's kind of hidden here. Kind of push the wire out of the way to get to it. That's the hardest part about the whole job is actually putting those back in. Getting the bracket to line up with the mounting point is it's not too bad, but it is just kind of a pain. So we take those out, and then this back slides right off. So here I'm just working on, I unplugged all the plugs, and then I'm taking the nuts off there. And here's a closer view to show it a little better. There's the 3 plugs for the coils, and then there's a nut holding each coil in. They're pretty easy to get to. The front one's got kind of hoses in the way, but since the bracket's loose, they move right out of the way. One thing I did forget to mention is there is a plug on the back of the airbox. You can see it right there on top of the hoses. Right here, I'm just finishing pulling the spark plugs out. So these particular spark plugs in this application are supposed to have a 40,000th gap, which is right there. So this is the old one, obviously, but what we're talking about from gap is the distance from that electrode there to this piece right here. Okay, so we want to put our gapping tool in there, and obviously we are way too big because these things are worn. So these are actually at like a 60,000th gap. So what we would need to do to get them there is we would have to bend this piece in. The ones that we put in came pretty much pre-gapped. They were at 39 and they're supposed to be at 40. And then there we went way too far. And so we'd need to take something and bend it out. But there we go. And then that's going to be close to where we need it. So that's how you set the gap on there. As you can see, this is the used one. That electrode should be longer. It's all worn out and it's at an angle. That's a bad spark plug. So what we are going to do before we install them, we're going to put some of this anti-seize. It's high temp copper formula, whatever. I've had this jar for years. It's really old. It lasts forever. You really don't need this much. So all you're going to do is put a dab on there. And then you can see in the video that I'm struggling to get them out. I don't know if they don't use it from the factory or what, but if you don't put them, then I actually thought they were going to break when I was taking them out. They were so stuck. And so the next time since I put it on like this, just a little bit, the next time I go to pull them out, they won't be stuck like that. They'll come out real easy. So a very important step. So here I'm putting the spark plugs back in. I showed the torque wrench to the camera. It was 20 foot-pounds for the spark plugs, which is 240 inch-pounds. I like to torque them, and then I don't have to wonder, did I put them in tight enough or not? And then you can see I'm putting the anti-seize on there. I thought that I was going to break the spark plugs taking them out. They were so stuck, and then I won't have that problem. These spark plugs were already good on the gap, but I checked them. So of course, because I was making a video, I ran out of dielectric grease. This is an old spark plug, and I'm going to show you what you should do. This is obviously not dielectric grease. It's clear or white in color, but it's grease nonetheless. It'll show you the difference. Don't use this. It won't work the same because it could impede your spark. But this will show the point. So what you want to do is on your spark plug wire, or on that, in the case of this vehicle, we had a coil-on plug. So on the boot here, near the end, and there was an O-ring on there. You want to put some of this on here and put just a little bit on the inside edge. You just want to kind of wet the rubber. And if you've got a spark plug wire like this, you want to do both ends. And so what this is going to do is, number one, it'll kind of seal out moisture, and number two, it's going to keep this rubber from sticking to the whatever piece it happens to be attached to. Sometimes you'll get, especially on those coil-on plugs where they go down in the head, if they get real stuck, they'll break in half, and then they're a pain to get out. So it's important. Again, this is not dielectric grease. I'm just using this as an example, but this is what you want to do with it. Just kind of wet the end a little bit, and that'll keep it. Next time you go to pull it off, it'll pull right off, no problems. I'm obviously gonna have problems because I ran out and I put it back together dry. So here I'm just putting the ignition coils back in. They slide right back in, and then put the nut on and tighten them up. Like I said, I ran out of dielectric grease, so I may have problems taking them out the next time. It really helps if you put that stuff in there. It also helps a little bit. It'll keep water out and stuff. Next, I had to take this boot out to get it out of the way. And then here's a view of the other side, a little bit closer. Take those nuts off, and then unplug the plugs, and then pull the coils out. This back one that I was just pointing at, the stud wanted to come out with the nut. So what I ended up doing was grabbing the stud with a vice grip, and then the nut broke right loose. That was the only one I had any issues with. That rear one, you'll see when I go to put it back in, and when I go to torque it, it's kind of under the edge of the firewall, so it's a little bit of a pain to get to, but nothing serious. Just takes a different length of extension to get to it. This is me taking that stud out, trying to just keep turning it, and then I realized that it wasn't coming out. The whole stud was coming out. So now I'm taking the spark plugs out of that side. Same as the other side. And then putting them back in. On this side, those hoses in the front, they're kind of in the way, but they move right out of the way. No big deal. Luckily, this one's very simple, very quick job. The whole job took me about probably an hour with filming and everything. Some of them, when you get a V6 like this in a front-wheel drive configuration, it's hard to get to the rear cylinders. These ones are nice because they're right there on top. I like to torque the spark plugs. I've heard people have problems with spark plugs coming out or getting stuck because they were torqued too tight and then breaking them off. So it's just easier to torque them if possible, and then you know it's set right. And then I just finished buttoning up that side, torque the spark plugs, and then put the coils back in and the nuts back on the coils. This next clip of me putting the airbox was actually like a 10-minute clip that's been sped up to 20 times. It's just kind of a pain to get the bracket lined up um, with the mounting tabs for the lines and the mounting tabs for the airbox, but it's not too bad. So that's it, guys. Pretty easy process. Um, check out my Facebook page and my website. They're linked in the description. If you thought the video was useful, please like it, leave a comment, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.